Thank you, Gregor. I think, Andrew, are we quorate?
Yes, Chair.
Thank you. So agenda item 1 is acceptance of absence. Has everybody?
Chair, the only apology that I'll put in is for Mr. Penny in the event that he isn't able to join us, as he's not here at the moment.
Okay, that's fine then.
Chair, could I also say that I have another meeting at 3, so in the event that the meeting goes on that long, I will have to leave.
Okay, thank you for that, Jackie. That doesn't make us inquorate, does it, Andrew?
No, Chair, we'd still be comfortably quorate. All
right, thanks for that. So apologies for absence. I've received apologies from Mr. Dennis Patterson, who's the independent person appointed under the Localism Act. So I don't think there is any other than Mr. Penny. Agenda item 2 is to approve the minutes of the last meeting. So have we got someone that was there from the last meeting? I think we've got...
I was there, Chair.
Yeah, can you approve those then, Jessica?
Yes, of course I can approve the minutes.
Right, thank you very much for that. Have we got a seconder?
Chair, I don't think there's anybody else here on this meeting who was that. So perhaps if you could second them on the basis that Councillor Carrington's confirmed they're accurate, just so that we have the procedure followed. Okay, so I'll second those as a correct record. So agenda item 3 is to note any items which the chair has agreed to add to the agenda on the grounds of urgency. I have no chair's announcement. Agenda item 4, can I just remind members of the requirement to make an appropriate verbal declaration at the meeting on any items on this agenda in which they have an interest. Anybody? No? I'll take that silence as no. So chair's announcements. So firstly, can I welcome everyone to the first meeting of the Standards Committee since the Council approved changes to the membership and responsibilities of the committee. Members will recall that under the changes to the Standards Committee, it is intended that the Council appoint 2 independent persons. This is in line with the recommendations of the Committee on Standards in Public Life. The Council's current independent person, Mr. Patterson, has unfortunately been unwell recently and has indicated he wishes to stand down from his position. Dennis has been a long supporter of the Standards Committee and has been the Council's independent person for 9 years. On behalf of this committee and Council, can I wish Dennis well and thank him for his help and support to Standards, members and officers. Do we usually send a letter out to people when they've served for so long to say thank you? We would normally, Chair, yes, and with your permission we'll draft something up. Please, if you don't mind. And it also, I realise that Emirates Nairn Briggs, has the letter been sent to him as well? I believe it has, Chair, but I'll double check. Thank you very much. If not, can one go? Certainly, yes. Thank you as well. So, I'll go to the next agenda item. Which is agenda item 6, the local government association model code. A local authority to adopt a code of conduct for its members. All right. No,
I'm struggling too.
You're struggling too, right?
Sometimes it's really clear, Councillor Garbutt, and sometimes it's not. Go to agenda item 6, the Local Government Association Model Code of Conduct. So members, so can I remind the committee that the Localism Act requires each local authority to adopt a code of conduct for its members based on the Nolan principles. Can everybody hear? and it is for each authority to determine the content of its code. However, in its report, the Committee for Standards in Public Life recommended that there should be greater consistency across codes of conduct, and that a new model code of conduct should be drafted with a further recommendation that all local councils, that is town and parish councils, should adopt the same code of conduct as the principal's authority in their area. Can I now ask Gillian or Andrew to take us through the report?
Andrew's going to deal with that, Chair, and then I might come in at the end with any final remarks if need be, if that's okay.
That's lovely. Thank you very much, Gillian. Andrew?
Thank you, Chair. You've given a quick overview of the report, but just to add to that, so in January 2020, the Local Government Ethical Standards report from the Committee of Standards in Public Life included a best practice recommendation that local authorities should adopt a code of conduct that was consistent, and recommended it be based on a model that should be produced by the Local Government Association. A great piece of work was undertaken on behalf of the LGA, and a model code of conduct was drafted. There was consultation on that in the summer of 2020, and that went through, and the final version was published on the 23rd of December of last year. It's based on the Committee for Standards in Public Life's best practice recommendations, and the expectation is that all councils should adopt it as a minimum, but with the provision that additional local variations can be made to it. The model code covers a joint statement, an introduction, a definition, purposes of the code, the general principles of councillor conduct, when the code would apply, the standards for councillor conduct, and in terms of general conduct, it covers respect, bullying, harassment, discrimination, the impartiality of officers of the council, confidentiality, access to information, disrepute, the use of your position as a councillor, use of local authority resources and facilities, and covers complying with the code, protecting council's reputation and the reputation of the council, interests and gifts and hospitality. Within the code, it includes a number of examples to make it clear what is expected under that category, making it clearer for the public and for members alike. There are a number of issues with this model code, not least in its definition and application, and a piece of guidance work has been commissioned by the LGA. It's anticipated that that will be available towards the end of April, which will assist in the adoption of the code if councils choose to adopt it. It remains for each local authority to choose what code it should adopt, as long as it follows those Nolan principles. We've attached the code as put forward by the LGA for members' information. However, in light of consideration by monitoring officers and officers generally, there's a number of considerations within it that need to be brought to your attention, Chair.
Okay.
So firstly, we're in section 1. We'd like to, and I've included this on agenda page 27 at appendix 2. After the word treat, those who come into contact with in my role, including, we should change it to the words that I've just referred to there. And the reason for that is it indicates that in a list, there's those people that aren't covered. So changing the way it's not exhaustive then. In section 4, adding to part C, given to me in my role as a councillor, and which is classed as exempt under Schedule 12A of the LGA Local Government Act 1972. The reason being that confidential information is tightly defined in the Local Government Act, and it could be argued it's argued that it's different to exempt information, and the code needs to cover both. In section 4.2, delete the list after the word myself and add or any other person. Again, using a list suggests that anyone not in that list is excluded. And in section 8, in 8.3, delete the words the administration of, the reason being that this ensures that all involved are covered, including witnesses. That's in relation to any investigation. In addition, Chair, over the last couple of years since we adopted our code, we've kept it under review, and we've made some changes as we've gone along. Consideration was given to the value of gifts and hospitality that should be declared, whether accepted or not, within Wakefield. The LGA model code recommends that gifts and hospitality of at least £50 are registered. However, Chair, we would suggest that we stick with the previous recommendation and stay at £25. It's a reasonable amount, and we can adopt the code. If we choose to adopt the code, we can amend that accordingly, so that it's £25, along with the definition that we said of a cumulative value of a number of gifts and hospitality of not more than £100, so that we cover both avenues. So that we think that's slightly stronger than just £50, Chair, because there will be cases, as debated previously by the Standards Committee, where a number of gifts and hospitality might be made that don't quite hit the threshold, but once you've added them all together, could be quite a significant declaration to make. In addition, Chair, we did a great deal of work on members' interests, in particular at committee meetings, whereby the definition of a disclosable pecuniary interest wasn't wide-reaching enough. So we introduced a significant other interest, Chair, and we would again recommend that we stick with our definition of interests, as previously agreed and supported by Council, which will include the significant other interest. So that will cover the elements of family members. We think that goes a little bit further than what's covered in the draft code. And one final point, Chair, that the draft model code that's put forward will require some legislative changes. There's been a great deal of debate over the last few years around sanctions available to standards committees and councils in general in relation to misconduct complaints. We all know the situation at the moment, that the legislation is worded such that the sanctions available are those that are available to councils generally, removing people from committees, etc. In order for some of the changes to be made, it would require legislative changes to be made generally. So that will be kept under review should the government respond to the Committee on Standards in Public Life's report of a couple of years ago. They are still waiting for that response. So any code that we do adopt could be subject to further change if the government decides to make changes to the standards framework. With that, Chair, I'll hand it back to yourself, but the recommendations are there for the committee to decide whether they would like to recommend that the model code as put forward by the LGA be adopted by Wakefield Council, subject to the changes that I've identified and any other changes the committee wants to put forward. And if that's the case, Chair, we recommend that we also write out to town and parish councils when we adopt our code to recommend that they do something similar and adopt this model code to provide the consistency across the whole of the district if possible.
Okay, thank you for that, Andrew. Have we got any comments or questions from any of the members?
I think Councillor Spate's indicating that she's wants to make.
Okay, Councillor Spate.
Thank you. Yeah, I would agree that the amendments that we're suggesting regarding gifts, etc., is stronger, and the other one. But given that it says the idea of introducing this code is to make sure it's more consistent, are we then not moving away from consistency? And if we are going to share it with parish councils with the suggestion that they adopt it, are we suggesting that they adopt the code as it stands, or with the strengthening that we think we're putting in? Because again, we could have something different in terms of gifts, etc., and pecuniary interest in terms of parish councils as opposed to a district council.
Andrew.
Sorry, Chair.
Yeah.
Yes, in terms of the adoption of codes, that's for each local authority, whatever level to choose. So it can only be a recommendation from the principal authority to the other local authorities to adopt the code. We would be recommending that they adopt the code as we amend it. So that would provide the consistency, but it would be for them to make any local variations to that as they see fit, Chair. In terms of the gifts and hospitality, the consistency would be within the Wakefield district. Our recommendation is £25. So that would be what we could recommend to the town and parishes. That may not be what other authorities follow elsewhere, but if the government decides to change the legislation and introduce a level that is consistent across the whole country, then obviously that would be where we would have to consider adopting that and changing our code at that point, Chair. But I think that the £25 would provide the consistency across the district if that is what the committee and the council chooses to adopt.
Okay, Jackie, are you okay with that answer?
Yeah, I'm okay with it. I do think it strengthens it, but I don't think it gives consistency. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
Because it's consistent now anyway across the district, but it will be inconsistent with other authorities, and it may be inconsistent with parish councils, and yet we're supposed to be doing this for consistency. I don't have any problem at all with those changes because I do think it strengthens it. So,
Yeah.
so I'm satisfied with that, but I just think it moves away slightly
from the consistency.
May I comment on that, Chair, please?
Gillian, please.
In terms of the original Committee for Standards in Public Life report, the thing that they were concerned of in terms of consistency is not consistency across the country so much as consistency between different tiers of local government. And they were recognising that some councillors are dual-hatted or even triple-hatted in county and district areas. So they are parish councillors, district councillors and potentially county councillors. And they were looking for consistency within a geographical area amongst those tiers. So there is a suggestion that future legislation might require parishes to adopt the same as their principal council. So I hope that helps, Councillor Spate.
Yes.
Okay, Jackie, thank you for that. Any more comments, questions? I can't get my chat box up for some reason. So I can't actually see anyone else on the screen. I think there's only one chat in there.
Yeah, there's nobody else has indicated,
nobody
Chair.
else.
I'll keep an eye on it for you and let you know if
thank
anything
you.
comes up.
Yeah. So has anybody got any more comments or questions on the report that Andrew's put forward? Text silence as no. Okay. So at this point then, are we all in agreement that the recommendations put forward by Andrew, that we accept those, and that the report be noted from the committee to recommend to full council? Is that right, Gillian? Is that the way it goes?
Yes, Chair, that's right. If this Standards Committee are in agreement with the recommendations, we'll include those in the updates to the Constitution, which go through in the annual meeting.
Right. From Jackie to everyone, agree? Yeah.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, agreed. So can we agree those recommendations then? Do you want me to read them out?
Agreed. I'm agreeing with him.
You're agreeing with them?
I think probably, Chair, on a virtual meeting, it's easier to say, does anybody disagree?
Yeah, you might be right, Gillian. Yeah, does anyone disagree?
And we'll take the silence as being everybody's happy, Chair, if that's okay.
Everyone's happy, yes, yes. So do you want me to read them out just for process or not?
It's not necessary, Chair, thank you.
Right, okay. Okay then. So I don't think there's anything else on the agenda. So all that's left for me to do is thank everyone for their attendance and formally close the meeting. Could I ask Gregor now to switch off the webcast?